All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. My name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products at phoenixNAP, and I'm joined by Amit Rawlani, Director of Technology Alliances at Cloudian, and Michael Deemer, Inside Systems Engineer at Veeam. Thanks for joining, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Glad to be here.
All right, so we're going to roll right into this. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a poll question. I'm going to try to gauge some of the audience just so that we can help deliver our presentation to a specific kind of mindset. I'm hoping that you guys will keep this interesting, and we're going to launch that poll up right now. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds or so to click the button, and here we go. So you see the poll question on the screen. What is your industry vertical? Just trying to see who goes where. Allows each of us to kind of talk about specific experiences that we have in various areas. Dominated education, software engineering. All right. Okay, I'm gonna try to let it creep up. A couple more folks, get your vote in. All right. Then we'll close this down here. Looks like about 50% said they're from SaaS software engineering, 30% from business and e-commerce, 20% from education. All right, one more and then we'll get started with the content. And then just size of your company. Generally, how large organization do you have? And that will give us some context as we talk about solutions and how different folks of different sizes can address different things with different budgets. All right, get those votes in. We got 5% more vote this time than we did last time, so that's good. We're getting through a few folks. All right, as I kind of expected, definitely a heavy SMB crowd today. There is quite a few plus 1,000 employees, so we'll try to inject a few enterprise kind of constructs into the conversation today, but we're all here to talk about ransomware, right? The title of this presentation, Outsmarting Ransomware Attackers and Key Strategies to Protect Your Data. Each of us has solutions that we've developed, but really the value that we're going to talk about today is when you're leveraging a complete and holistic solution that takes advantage of all these great technologies, you really can put yourself in prime position to have your data protected. And specifically as we look at ransomware, what we have all seen and what I'm sure you're hearing in the news is that every single day, more entities, the most vulnerable, are hit by ransomware. And it's having a tremendous impact on business. And what we're hoping to do is get that awareness up, put the tools in people's hands to help them protect themselves from these types of attacks, and really try to protect organizations from what can be a catastrophic event, right? And what we typically see is that organizations, especially small businesses that are hit by ransomware, that ultimately never get their data back, it can be a business-ending event for them. And we want to work to make sure that even if the ransomware attacks continue and we're not able to fix the vulnerabilities that lead to these types of compromises, the hope is that we can work together as a community to make the impact a lot less. And I truly believe if you look at some of these solutions, take some of the bits and pieces out of all of them, you'll find that you can really improve your data protection when faced with some of the serious threats that malware and ransomware can present. So, giving you guys a little bit more context, this is legit everywhere, right? So 764 healthcare providers had some type of ransomware outbreak and attack in 2019, right? It's crazy. And what we're finding is they're always focused on the thing that makes you click the wrong button, that makes you accept the wrong thing, and it's pretty much always topic of the day. As those payloads are getting into your environment, they're trying to find ways to get into your business. And the latest, as most of you guys would know, coronavirus is the way, right? You can get seriously topical. You can make emails and other kind of payload links really look like they're important and there's something you should take a look at. And it only takes, sometimes, depending on how the business is protected, it only takes one person clicking the wrong thing, opening the wrong attachment, performing the wrong action, and an entire infrastructure can be compromised. And what some of you may know, and they're going to talk about, my friends from Cloudian and Veeam are going to talk a little bit about, is going after backups is kind of a key tenet of these things. And how can we protect that data and those critical backups from these types of compromises? And there's some unique solutions that have been developed between Veeam and Cloudian to really make your data, safe and immutable from destruction. So we're going to get there, and I think you're going to see some interesting technologies that you may not be aware of. So as we all know, it's costing everybody a ton of money, right? $133,000 average cost. And I can tell you for certain that there were some large ones in there, but this is truly a small and mid-sized business problem that when we're talking about ending an organization's business, right, and ending their company, or costing them so much that it's catastrophic to their business. $133,000 is potentially an entire year's worth of profit for a lot of businesses. So it's something definitely to take into consideration, and as you're looking at how you're protecting your critical data, and the folks on the call that are representing organizations, I think that it's important to let them know, let the business owners know that this is something that you should be looking at and you should be protecting yourself against. I think the one thing that is unfortunate is that even if you do have a backup, you still could suffer a reputational problem, right? What we're finding today is that the organizations that are performing these types of attacks need their victims to see the potential outcome, and it can't be just threats of not paying, right, equaling some bad thing. What you have to see is your data, other people's data that didn't pay, plastered on the internet, and they're working hard to do that. So although we can potentially protect a business from going out of business, although we can work together to protect the data from destruction and potentially completely ending a company's organization, it's hard to protect against the reputational damage. And you're going to have to look at other types of protection mechanisms to reduce that vulnerability footprint that allows attackers to deliver and act in a manner to hold your data at ransom. So this is kind of what I was talking about as we look at why ransomware protection a lot of times does fail. Is people try to put endpoint security in place, they try to put security awareness in place, but the end users, as most of you know, if you work in security or if you work in an IT function that is highly aware of security issues, even the most highly trained organizations still suffer large failure rates when they're looking at people and their response to simulated phishing attacks, right? And upwards of 50% of people inadvertently or unknowingly click on the wrong button or do the wrong thing when faced with a test, right? Even as you put perimeter protections in place, somebody's going to make a mistake. And even with perimeter protections, if they're able to get to the endpoint, a lot of times those perimeter protections are useless. They're over the VPN now, or they're inside the corporate LAN, and it's all based on your network security internally, layer 2 security internally. But even that can be a struggle to protect against. And then they go after your backups. The thing that I was talking about earlier, they know that in the past, having a backup kind of was a savior for a lot of organizations. So what they've done over the years, they've modified the attack to compromise the backup before they make the user aware at all that a ransomware attack is in progress. And it's nefarious. I mean, it truly is nefarious. You know, when you have the primary data store and the backup data store compromised and encrypted, you know, it makes a lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today moot. But there are new protections. There are new ways to prevent this from happening, and we're going to hit on those as we proceed. So my friends are going to talk a lot more about this. One of the things that you know, we're going to kind of get into is you know, what can you do to protect that data? And my friends at Cloudian and Veeam have come up with some really immense solutions that are going to help out with that. So with that, I'm going to roll directly into a couple more poll questions, and then we're going to move on to my friends at Veeam and Michael and his content. All right, so how much data are you guys protecting today? Right, we're going to launch that poll up, allow you guys to comment. Hopefully we're going to launch the poll up. We didn't get a lot of votes on that one, but we got about 50% less than 100 TB, 25% to 100 to 500, 25% 500 to 1 petabyte. And then what are you doing today to protect against ransomware, right? You know, do you think you have the right solution in place? I think that's essential for kind of us to know. Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of folks, as we look at this, you know, the poll results are kind of hovering between, you know, I feel like I'm protected, but I still want to look at this more, or I really don't have anything in place today and I have to find a solution. You know, I think there are probably a few business people on the call, maybe a few business owners on the call, CIOs that are wondering to themselves right now, you know, what am I doing to address this problem? I know maybe that I'm using endpoint protection, maybe I'm using, you know, a Sophos or something like that, but is that my only line of defense, right? I think it's a very important question to answer for yourself internally. So I'm going to go ahead and close that poll up. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to my friend Michael. Take it away, Mike.
Thank you, William. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Michael Deemer. I'm a systems engineer here at Veeam Software, and today I'll be walking you through the Veeam side of the business with phoenixNAP and Cloudian. Really what I want to talk about today is the Veeam Cloud Data Management Platform. It's at the core of our success is the Veeam Cloud Data Management Platform. This platform is built on our industry-leading backup solution, which provides backup and recovery, data mobility, monitoring and analytics, orchestration and automation, and governance and compliance for all data. Now, let's touch a little bit into backup recovery. So I'm going to touch on the right side of the screen first, and then I'll jump back to the left side. But what I really want to touch on first is backup and recovery. So backup and recovery is simple to use, reliable software-defined solutions with application awareness, ensuring granular and verified backup and recovery of all critical assets, ensuring that customers are always able to recover from any system failures, outages, cyber attacks, or even other critical IT needs. Now, let's talk a little bit about cloud mobility. So what can we do with that? So we can protect, we can restore, we can migrate workloads across any cloud or any platform. Now, monitoring and analytics. It sounds like what we can do. So we can monitor, we can diagnose, and we can remediate unexpected issues for critical backup and DR situations. Now, orchestration and automation. what we are going to do there is we're going to leverage well-managed backup data to basically unlock greater business value, testing and orchestrating your DR operations. And then governance and compliance, ensuring that your application security, compliance, and privacy requirements before deployment without any impact to production systems or any increased cost, because really at the end of the day, we don't want any more overhead, right? So let's touch back a little bit on the left side of the screen here. So at the very top, I'm just going to kind of break it down and work our way down. So we have cloud, we have virtual environments, physical environments, and then software as a solution. So we have SaaS. And then underneath those, we have monitoring and analytics, orchestration, and then backup and replication, which really is the meat and potatoes behind everything. And then underneath backup and replication, you're actually going to see a small little box that says Data Labs. Data Labs is also known as Sure Backup. So with Sure Backup, that's actually how Veeam actually tests and make sure that our backups are validated, and if we have to fail back to them, they're actually good. Because what's the point of having a backup in a repository or anything that actually is going to start like a NAS or SIF share if it's not actually going to be able to be used? It has malware on it, or it has an array that went bad, or anything inside of there. We need to know that way if we have to fail back to it, we're good to go. And then definitely last but not least is our universal storage API, which makes everything a lot better, right? The next biggest thing I really want to talk about is a single platform with the ecosystem of partners. So that's here is going to actually be on our next slide here, William, and that's what I'm going to be digging into next. All right, so Veeam Cloud Data Management Platform is a complete solution. And when I truly mean a complete solution. As you can see from the top, we have a really good breakdown of it. But what does it do? It helps our customers manage and protect their data in order to support better business outcomes. Because really, at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. Now, Cloudian is a valued technology alliance partner and is part of our ecosystem of partners. Their HyperStore platform is Veeam ready and tested for object storage for Veeam backup and replication. So let's just kind of break this down just a little bit here. So at the very top, we have cloud. Underneath that, we have Cloudian, right? So that's where Amit's going to come in, and we're going to touch a little bit on that a little bit today. And then software as a service, right? So Office and OneDrive, virtual environments, what do we support? VMware, Hyper-V, and then Nutanix AHV. And then for the physical side, we got Windows, of course, Linux, and then the Oracle databases as well. So then really the next thing I really want to talk about here is the 3-2-1 rule. So the 3-2-1 rule is basically what that states, right? It's having 3 different copies of your media, which 2 of them are 2 different types of media, right? So we're going to have 3 different types of media on which 2 different types of media are offsite. And then, one is actually offsite. And this is a good idea for an additional +1. So that way we can actually get that one completely, basically what we like to call air-gapped, right? So the offline storage options listed above basically highlight what's going on, right? So we have 3 different copies of your data, 2 different types of your media. So that's, that could be, a NAS or, and then tape, for instance. And then really what I want to talk next about is air-gapped storage. So let's just look at this from the top down. So tape is huge. We're all used to that. There's probably a lot of you guys that have data centers or on-prem tape servers running LTO 3 or above, right? So we're used to that air-gapped side of the business. Replicated VMs. So basically they're powered off, waiting for us to be powered on in that time of need. Primary storage snapshots. So these can be, these are good recovery techniques, usually for different authentication frameworks, really at the end of the day, what we're using it for. And then Veeam Cloud Connect. That's how, let's just say you don't have a lot of on-prem space. You don't have, you don't want to handle a lot of that on-prem stuff. You don't have a lot of on-prem space. This is where Veeam Cloud Connect is going to come in. And then last but definitely not least is rotated hard drive. So making sure that we're getting it off-site, even if you have to plug it in and run it onto your home office, at least having something off-site and air-gapped, that's where we're going to go to, right? But what's really cool and what I really think is cool is Immutable Backups with Cloudian, right? So it's super simple. And let's just kind of walk through it. What is it, right? So storage backups in the cloud tier with Cloudian HyperStore. So the cloud tier. So let's actually kind of go back a little bit here. So the cloud tier is actually incorporated into the scale-out backup repository. The scale-out backup repository is really made of two different components. One being the performance tier. The performance tier is all that local on-prem data. The capacity tier is the object storage side. And then why? So immutable backups cannot be deleted or encrypted. So making sure that you guys are good from ransomware. This is what this is about, right? So making sure that we're protected on that front. And then steps for success. So use a scale out backup repository, or like what we like to call internally sobers. And then what we do is we set up the cloud tier with a capacity tier as well. And then setting up copy mode. Setting up copy mode to use Cloudian immutable storage. It's literally that simple. It's a 2-click of a process. You're up in the object tier, it's immutable, and you're good to go. And definitely last but not least, what I want to touch on is cloud tier copying. So it's a built-in policy, right? So let's actually just kind of go over a little bit of this. So built-in policy-based, redundant for offsite backups to achieve that 3-2-1 rule of backups. Copies in Cloudian, HyperStore can be made immutable for protection against cyber threats. And then definitely last but not least, restoring Cloudian into a streamlined, doesn't require any hardware licenses. So last January, we released a Veeam Backup Replication 9.5 version 4, where we introduced capacity tier with move mode. So this feature basically allowed chunks of data to be pruned out of the VBK file. So the VBK file is our proprietary file system. Stored locally on the performance tier and then moved into the capacity tier, which was backed by the object storage repository. So again, going back to that scale out backup repository where that performance tier is basically your on-prem local data. And then that secondary data is going to be that capacity tier, or what's known as the object tier. Now, at any time, there's only one copy of your data in either the performance tier or the capacity tier. This makes the move policy perfect for offloading the data from more expensive storage to less expensive storage. So that more expensive storage may be like a NetApp array on site. You have a whole bunch of SSDs as cache, and you don't necessarily want to use that. You want to have, cheaper storage, and you want to keep that for quick and fast responses, right? So it does not, however, satisfy the 3-2-1 rule, however. So this is where we need to leverage the backup copy job so we can actually get that stored data off site. Now, in V10, which actually just released, I want to say a couple months back at this point, we introduced copy mode. So copy mode was a big feature that we were looking for. This feature copies any backup file that has been created by a backup job to the capacity tier. This creates a redundant copy of your data stored locally in the object tier and will satisfy that 3-2-1 rule of backup, as well as backing up your data to a copy to basically to the capacity tier, so that object tier. Now, at this point in time, I'd like to pass it back over to Amit over at Cloudian to speak a little bit of the Cloudian side of the house. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you, William. And welcome, folks. Good morning, good afternoon. Before I begin into the specific of the solution, a quick plug for Cloudian. Meet Cloudian HyperStore, which is our flagship product. What we bring to the table right now is an on-premises S3 compatible object storage. Now, most of you have heard about AWS S3, and whenever you think about S3, you think about Amazon storage in the public cloud. Well, Cloudian HyperStore is the same S3-based storage, or at least it's the most similar to the AWS S3 storage, but this is on premises. So this can be within your data center, whether it's hosted, managed, or can be available for you through phoenixNAP as a storage as a service offering. Now, the best capabilities of HyperStore are around storage of unstructured data. It is a platform meant to scale to petabytes and store large amounts of unstructured data at a very, very economical cost. You can start small with HyperStore and scale into petabytes. And the use cases that we are very well known for start with the data protection realm. So backup, archives, and now with our latest launch of 7.2, protection against ransomware, compliance, data immutability. William, can you keep it to the previous slide, sir? And some of the other use cases that we talk about are in the media and entertainment space, Internet of Things, and security. So one thing that I want to leave with you guys is we are the most compatible S3-based storage, which is available in various deployment options, at least say You can definitely get it in a hosted or a managed format from phoenixNAP, and also as a storage as a service offering through phoenixNAP itself. Next slide, please. So the topic for today is ransomware protection. And the solution that we have between Veeam and Cloudian is the best in the market. It is the most seamless one, and based on the de facto standards of doing immutable storage, which is nothing but acronym of worm, write once and read many. Now, S3 object lock is a methodology of doing worm that was introduced by AWS about 8 to 12 months back. Very, very quickly, it became the de facto standards. And what it does is it is a feature that enables you to lock up data at the granularity of an object level. So this is the lowest granularity you get in scalable object storage platforms. And with S3 object lock, you are going and modularizing your locks at the granularity of an object. Now, Cloudian has been working on object lock implementation for a while, and we have been working actually with Veeam since the last 9 to 12 months to make sure that the features that we're developing are standard-based and compatible with the applications that are going to support the same. So in December of 2019, with our 7.2 release, we introduced S3 Object Lock, which was a couple of months before Veeam released their version of S3 Object Lock support. And since this is a standardized methodology of doing worm, you have an end-to-end data immutability solution, starting from the backup application all the way to the storage target, giving you a completely data immutable backup with Veeam and Cloudian. Now, with the S3 Object Lock, you are getting the worm storage in Cloudian, and it also enables you to specify the retention controls, which means you can specify the amount of duration for which your data will be locked up in the storage and made immutable and tamper-proof, so to speak, from attacks like ransomware. Next slide, please. Within Cloudian, we support two modes of protection. So there's the governance mode, which is intended literally for more of a dev test environment. Or if you are a large organization, you can have the governance mode set up between different parts of your organization, so that one part is not overwriting data that the other unit is using, and so on and so forth. This is a less stringent methodology, and this allows privileged users to go and clear the worm settings so that data can be deleted or cleared off just in case there is a need to. Now, this is not the mode that we recommend for ransomware protection. That goes to the next mode, which is the compliance mode. This is definitely the stringent mode, and this is the mode supported through Veeam as well. Compliance is the mode intended for, as the name suggests, compliance. So any use case that you have that requires, whether it's a legal requirement to make sure that your data is tamper-proof, or it is to make sure that ransomware attacks, even if they do happen, are definitely not going to be able to tamper with your data by encryption or deletion. Compliance mode is the one that you have to set up. This requires that the objects that need to be locked have the specifications of the lock enablement as well as the retention mode specified at the time of the bucket creation. It is a stringent mode, and therefore within Cloudian, we also require a separate license to be enabled, a worm license, before you enable worm in Cloudian in the compliance mode. The reason here is not really from a cost perspective, it's more from making you guys aware that this mode is really strict, and once you enable it, you will not be able to clear it out even if you are a privileged user. So be careful about what you do and make sure that your retention policies are set to the time frame that you can deal with. Next slide, please. And of course, it's not just enough to have a feature S3 object lock within your storage system. You will see some of the other storage systems actually will start talking about S3 object lock because of the standardized methodology of doing worm. And you'll also have other ways of talking about ransomware protection or data immutability. Well, what happens if a hacker gets into your system and compromises your system at the OS level? If they can get into the root of the system and just get rid of the entire storage software, any feature like S3 object lock is moot because your entire storage software is deleted, and therefore you cannot do anything about your data. That is also one of the means that hackers are using ransomware, especially the sophisticated one. From Cloudian perspective, we've actually been working to make sure our system is not just capable of doing standardized way of protecting your data, but it's also a hardened storage system. When we ship with Worm, we ship with secure shell enabled, with root access disabled, as well as with integrated firewall, with IAM access controls, and a host of other security features to make sure that we are hardened storage as well as we are completely compliant with Worm. In fact, we've been working for the last 12 to 18 months to get certified by various government agencies in the US as well as EMEA to ensure that we are the most worm compliant storage out there in the object storage depth. We look at SEC Rule 17A4, which is the most stringent of them all. This is a specific rule from the Security and Exchange Control to specify what constitutes as a worm storage. This actually specifies that even if you have root access, you will not be able to tamper with the data in a worm-enabled storage. Coasset Associates, a third-party government contractor, went through a fine-tooth comb through the Cloudian HyperStore software, not just from a feature perspective, but also from development methodology, testing methodology, to make sure that it is a bulletproof system of doing worm storage. And we've been certified in all of these regulations listed by Coasset Associates. So you can rest assured that if you're implementing ransomware protection with Cloudian, you are getting the most airtight solution in there. Next part, please. Quickly talking about the solution and the workflow. It all starts in this case with Veeam. Now, Veeam, as it supports S3 object lock in a standardized manner, it's a very, very simple workflow where you start your Veeam backup just as you would usually do. Typically, you go in and specify your backup stream. You select your scale-out backup repository, whether it's on-prem or hosted, or it's hosted with phoenixNAP. It's storage as a service through phoenixNAP. You would point your backup target to that. When you're doing that, you will, within the dialog box, get a simple checkbox which will ask you whether this is an object lock workflow. And just by clicking that, you will be able to start the object lock workflow. You will also get a dialog box window which will ask you for the duration for which you want to protect your data. And you can specify the number of days, number of weeks that you want that data to be protected. And that's it. Once this is done, these parameters on the object lock are taken and automatically inherited within Cloudian, because this is all standards-based. Cloudian takes these parameters, creates a bucket with locking enabled, as well as the retention time frame is inherited from Veeam, and the bucket is similarly created within Cloudian for the same duration. Now, when your backup data actually lands in this bucket, it is tamper-proof for the time duration that you specified. Even if ransomware gets into your systems, they cannot encrypt, change, or delete this data, and they will be laid waste. Even if they send you a post saying that you've been attacked, all you have to do is ignore them and restore a clean copy from your object log backup data, and this gives you complete protection for your backup workload and without any manual steps involved. It is a click of a button, and you will be able to restore your data from Cloudian through Veeam. And that was how simple it is, and that's the end of my section. So I think, William, next on to you.
Thank you so much, Amit. Thank you so much, Michael, for explaining kind of how all this works together. I think, as we look at these different solutions, they look great. And if you are in the mindset that you want to do everything yourself, you absolutely can work with each of these vendors independently and take advantage of these solutions, right? But I think where working with a service provider can be important is, as Amit pointed out, there are a lot of things to configure. There are a lot of policies to consider. There is an acquisition cost, obviously, of purchasing the arrays. And what we've been trying to do, working with each one of these companies, is build solutions that make these technologies easy to consume, right? How can I get started today consuming an object lock with Cloudian, integrated with Veeam, and protecting my data from ransomware? No acquisition time, no integration time, just cloud-based consumption of these technologies. And that's what we're here for. That's what makes us unique, right? And we're delivering these capabilities in 4 regions today, and a ton of other solutions that can help augment your environment, that can replace on-prem things that you may not want to manage or operate anymore. And they all work seamlessly together, one global network, one global provider. So when I talk about that word global, right, I truly mean it, right? We have been focused for the last 4 years in building infrastructure all over the globe. And so we're confident at this point that if you have infrastructure somewhere, we likely have a solution close to you, right? Whether it is, again, for primary data and parking that somewhere that is safe and secure and can leverage these great technologies, or if it's for offsite copies, offsite backup, and disaster recovery needs, there's a lot of solutions for you to take advantage of. And so I wanted to try to sum up what this looks like for us. I think it's interesting as you focus on trying to protect your data, as you like the ideas that Veeam and Cloudian presented today, that you can leverage all those technologies independently. That's something that's really important to us. So if you like your backup software and it integrates with object storage, you can replicate to our object storage service powered by Cloudian and take advantage of capabilities like object lock. If you love Veeam and you are looking at and focused on the Cloud Connect capabilities, which deliver some immense technologies, that is possible to do with us as well, right? And in any of those combinations, I think is important. As we deliver infrastructure solutions, we're not putting folks in a tight, confined solution space. And we're allowing users to pick and choose the solutions inside of our portfolio that make sense for them. And we try to make it simple and easy, low cost consumption, and take away some of the pain points that the public cloud has provided for so many years, things like outbound bandwidth charges, right? Making it easy to consume cloud-based object storage, offsite backup, and disaster recovery without having to, buy, integrate, and commit yourself for many, many years to the same solution. And I'm really excited because as we continue to build our capabilities, we're looking at ways to change the way that infrastructure is delivered and infrastructure is protected by bringing completely automated infrastructure technologies that are dedicated to consumers and allowing them to leverage our best of breed software solutions and technology providers. So as we work to deliver this next generation bare metal cloud offering, we're going to be working with Veeam, we're going to be working with Cloudian to make sure that these technologies are deliverable on demand in a completely automated fashion and still dedicated to you if that is a concern, if that is something that you're interested in. If you still want to have that ultimate level of control and you don't want that storage as a service, backup as a service consumption model, we still believe that infrastructure as a service can be a very important asset in that. And as we deliver this capability, we're going to allow customers in the next, over the next 6 months to begin onboarding with the latest generation of infrastructure available on the market with deep integrations into the technologies that power the infrastructure automation that they're leveraging today internally. And we're going to help not only the infrastructure teams and the security teams store and protect data, but we're also going to be helping the developers store and protect data securely in a compliant fashion. And hopefully, as we build out these capabilities, we'll start to be able to bring these best in breed solutions like what Veeam provides, like what Cloudian provides, and others to this technology and this platform so that customers have that true freedom of on-demand consumption, dedicated infrastructure, premium performance at a very low cost. And I think that once this service makes it to market, probably in the mid Q2, early Q3 timeframe, you'll find that it is going to be industry leading when you look at price performance ratios, and the ecosystem of partners that we're able to bring to the table to integrate with the platform, I think will be astounding. So keep on the lookout for that. Some updates to our website in the next few weeks that'll allow you to kind of get more information and possibly join our closed beta if that's of interest. So I'm gonna throw down the last poll question of the day and wrap this up. The ever-present marketing slide of, do you want us to get in touch with you, right? We're not gonna reach out unless you want us to. I would love, anybody who has any questions to throw them in to the question area, and we're gonna move directly into questions after this poll. Give it just a few more minutes here, or seconds, I mean. I'm gonna make you wait minutes for my marketing pitch. All right. And I will close this down here in just a second. If you don't vote, you're subject to the sign up of this webinar, so you might get a marketing email or two. All right. I think somebody asked how to get access to the poll. There's a polls section down in the GoToMeeting application that should allow you to vote. All right. If you can't find it, let somebody know and state your response, and we'll make sure that we honor it either way. All right, I'm gonna close this poll down and move directly into some questions. All right, let's see what we got here. Let's see. All right, what are the benefits of working with a service provider that's delivering these technologies versus integrating myself? So I think that as we talked about kind of towards the end, I think that the benefits can be multifaceted. They can be CapEx to OpEx conversion, that cloud consumption mentality. They can be having the expertise to implement these solutions may not always be available for organizations. So I think it definitely varies heavily depending on who you are and kind of what your needs look like. But I can say that, at a minimum, when you work with us or you work with our teams, you're going to get access to world-class capabilities, both people and technology. And I think that is the most important part of working with a service provider. All right, I think this one's going to be for Amit. How is the data protected from rogue or disgruntled administrator deletion?
Yeah, sure. So when you implement Veeam with Cloudian, what you get is you get a system that's shipped to you with all of the security features enabled. So even if you get it as a hosted service, what you will get is a Cloudian HyperStore system where the root access has been disabled, and you do not have privileges to deleting data that's been marked in the object lock section. Now, if you have a disgruntled employee or an administrator that got fired but has privileged access, even if he gets into the system and tries to delete using the root, it will not be allowed. It will be disabled, and you will get an error, or that person, whoever it is, will get an error when you're trying to delete the data. So it's a two-pronged protection. So we talked all about the external threats from ransomware and malware, but this also will be able to protect you from internal threats, disgruntled employees, even accidental deletions. Of course, this is a little more extreme version of trying to prevent from accidental deletions. A backup should be sufficient, but definitely disgruntled administrators with privileged access will also not be able to harm your business in any way, shape, or form with this particular solution.
All right. Let me throw another one out there, and either one of you guys can take this, I think, but is the communication channel between the Veeam backup server and the HyperStore device secured? What does that look like?
Yeah, from the Veeam side, yeah, we're going to use AES 256-bit for encryption. So yeah, we're definitely going to be completely secured from Veeam backup and replication server all the way over to really the Cloudian product overall.
Actually, Veeam mandates that. So it mandates that the connection between Veeam and Cloudian is encrypted and over SSL connection. So anytime you are transferring the data between Veeam and Cloudian, it will be encrypted, and once it lands onto Cloudian, you have the option of using AES 256 server-side encryption on Cloudian. Veeam also is able to do the encryption on top of that, so it is secure at rest as well.
And so maybe you can answer this one for me, Amit. When you choose to use HyperStore and kind of in coordination with Veeam, is there any loss of storage savings? I mean, is that storage savings and deduplication that Veeam's doing, is that brought over to the HyperStore appliance?
So I think Michael can confirm, but absolutely not. I believe it's just a standard way, and Veeam deduplication works, and you will not have any additional storage space required for this. Michael, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I'm almost with you there. I'm almost confident that the compression and dedupe actually don't go over.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure based on our observations that everything from a space savings perspective is pretty tightened up between these. It's a pretty deep integration between Veeam and Cloudian. And then I guess the last question, if anybody doesn't know more questions are submitted before we're done. If you're using tape today to protect against ransomware, why is this better, right? Why is this better than doing it old school and just taking that tape offline and then no one can get to it?
I can take the first crack at this, and then maybe William, you may also want to add. But
oh yeah,
traditionally tapes have been one way of doing ransomware protection. We all know how cumbersome it is to work with tapes. They are offline, so anytime there's retrieval, there's obviously a manual intervention required, and also even if you have those tape arms, they've known to have issues with maintenance and what have you, right? Tapes are not always reliable, so you have to make sure that if you have a tape in some vault, that on an ongoing basis, you make sure that the tape is readable. And then finally, from a standards perspective itself, the standards for LTFS change on a regular basis. So if you have a tape sitting in your vault for the last 12 to 16 months, encrypted in written in whatever LTFS 6, and now you have a new reader which is LTFS 8, we don't know if that will be compatible, so you have to make sure that the recoding of these things happen. So it's a very cumbersome methodology, and if you look at what the current offering is with Veeam and Cloudian, with Veeam Cloud Tier, you get as close to getting an actual air gap system, similar to what you would get with the tapes. Now, the reason is Veeam Cloud Tier talks with the Sober in a completely different channel over S3, and everything else for them is SMB and ZIF. So you're really separating the communication channel. So even if a hacker gets into one, they're not getting into the other. Second thing is immutability. If you add the object lock, the data is under lock and key, with even root access being disabled from deleting it. So you're getting as close as possible to tape. In fact, the solution is even better because your data is always online. So from a recoverability perspective, if it was tape, you'd have to have a truck roll to get somebody to actually get the tape out, and it could be a matter of days, weeks to recover. And with this particular solution, you're talking about a matter of minutes to hours to recover, and therefore this is the next generation solution. This is the better solution, and definitely as compared to tape, it also has a lot more benefits to it.
Yeah,
Agreed. I think
that
the flexibility of it is just phenomenal. You know, having able to be modular and mobile with your data is definitely key in this day and age.
And I'll wrap that up with this, kind of construct. I can tell you that there's two anecdotes I'll share around tape. Is that when 20 years ago, when I was kind of getting my start in technology, I was a tape backup administrator for my university, and I cannot tell you how many times we tried to recover something from a tape that had been rotated over and written to 1,000 times, and it was stored somewhere else. It took forever to get it right. It was in a completely different building. That if most cases with most providers, it's a data warehouse provider like Iron Mountain or whatever. It's not pretty a process to get it back. The other one I'll say is that it used to be a cost thing, right? Like it was really massive difference in cost. And to some extent, if you're still talking about petabytes and petabytes and petabytes of data, sure, right? There's potentially a cost that's material, but for most folks that have under 100 terabytes of data, majority of you on this call, I think that what we found is that it's not although percentage-wise it might be a lot cheaper technically, I think that for 100 terabytes of data, just buying the tape arrays and buying the tapes themselves, and then the cost at delta of actual spinning media, archival media through a product like Cloudian, it just isn't significant enough to sacrifice all those other capabilities. So for those of you still on tape, God love you. Let's let's see if we can figure out a better solution. And with that, I would like to thank my participants again today, Amit from Cloudian and Michael from Veeam. I hope everyone stays safe, and we will be in touch soon.
Thank you, William, for hosting this. Really appreciate everybody joining us today.
Agreed. Everybody stay safe, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Michael, as well. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.